Hi, I want to talk about shadow integration and what that can look like for people. This phenomenon that happens when we change is we reintegrate aspects of ourselves that we have been talked out of. And shadow work 101, right, is the awareness of my judgment about this thing that comes with this energetic charge implies that I have, what's the word I'm looking for? Exiled the aspect of self that would demonstrate itself as that thing. And I have shunned it and told it that it's bad. So the fun part about self-work is that eventually we can understand our parents more, we can understand everyone more, because we realize that they're within us. And if you really do work to change, you're going to find that part of that change requires you to embody the aspects of yourself that are like the things that you most dislike. And I was working with somebody last night and she said, you know, I'm noticing this thing that's happening in me as I kind of, embody myself a lot more, and I'm becoming a lot more hot-headed. And I could hear in her tone that there was something to this. So I said, well, what do you mean by hot-headed? And she said, well, I'm basically, let me close this door, it's driving me nuts. She said, I'm basically, will interrupt people if I need to get a point across, and I will say something like very directly, and that's not something I would normally do. So I said, well, why does that mean hot-headed? Like, why is that not you just being a person? Because you can hear the judgment in the aspect of self, right? So I want to neutralize that judgment for her, so she can actually embody this and transmute the frequency that she feared about this thing that she's trying to embody, right? So she's afraid. She's going, oh my God, I'm like becoming hot-headed. And I said, well, what's your definition of hot-headed? And she said, my mother, right? So there's when, I'm watching Modern Family. I don't watch much TV, but when I find something fun, I'm liking it now, because as a kid, I never really understood it. Everything just seemed like a big screen. It was all fake. And now I can understand character development as a writer, but also as a person. And the Spanish chick in there, she is hot-headed, but never gets hot. She can lose her shit on people, and you can tell she's totally in her body when she does it. Now, obviously, she's acting, but there's something to this, right? There are people out there who do not burn when they feel hot. And we want to get, specifically this particular person in a nervous system that can feel that temperature and not light herself on fire with it. Because externally, when her mother would get hot like that, her nervous system would start to fire up and go haywire and burn. But her mother was probably not running hot necessarily. She might have been, I don't know. What I am saying is we are affected by what we perceived as, oh, I was hot-headed, or I'm becoming more cynical, or I'm becoming something that I'm aware is maybe more natural to me, but I didn't like it. I don't like this aspect of myself that's becoming hot-headed. So again, we want to neutralize these judgments, because this is what it is, right? So when that aspect of self comes in, then we go, oh my God, I don't want this. This is dangerous for the self, the system of the self. And then we repeat the exile, right? Instead of really just looking at the personhood instead of the perfectionhood that's possible, the personhood, and going, oh, I just interrupted that guy. That's interesting. This must be important to me. No, we don't want to be assholes. But what the thing is most of the people I work with, okay, let me go here. I hope this integrates well. Somebody I work with, and this is a big thing for a lot of us, but it has really affected her in her body. And she thinks that when I say to her it is acceptable to be angry, that I'm actually instigating her to get messy and out of control. And, ooh, interesting. So let me pull this back and hope this is helpful. So the other day, my 7-year-old was totally freaking out. And she's the one who I say is the most like me. And she's like really feeling like this aspect of like, I have to stop, like I have to physically hurt myself to like stop this thing that's happening, because she couldn't find a way to like make it good. And she was screaming, I can't control myself. And I thought that was an interesting thing to say. So I said, who do you think is in control? And she immediately said, Daddy, because he's angry like me. So here's the thing. My fiance does not present anger to the naked eye. He is always cool and collected. The thing that happens with my daughter's archetype is like mine, right? You give her an inch, she'll take a mile if you don't stop her at the inch. She needs a long leash, which is true, but she also needs to know like when she's about to get shocked. So, and she doesn't usually, unless and this is the thing I noticed in this interaction, because what often happens is I say what I mean from the get-go. I'm not this parent that's going to be like, oh, you have 5 more chances. I'm like, this is what we do in this system. This is what's required for you to be a contribution to this system. And he has a 3 strikes rule, which I fundamentally disagree with in this context. Because Haven is a kind of person whose nervous system speaks louder than what she hears. So I want her to hear my words as meaningful without having to jump out of my body to jump into her to make them meaningful. That charge of, so what will happen is I'll say something to Haven, she won't do it, she'll say something back, Chris hears us doing this, and he doesn't like my tone, and Haven reflects my tone. We're doing it, right? Like we're in it, and that's not appropriate either. But what he does then is he will come in and basically reprimand me. And she thinks that that is him being in charge. And she also thinks that that's him being angry. So she feels this undertone of, why is this happening? Make this stop. It, like, if she's doing this, it's got to be the adult that's like making this happen. So he comes in, he'll give her a mile and then come in with the iron fist at the end of that mile and go, okay, now I mean it. And a lot of times people who I work with, our nervous systems do not register information until that is inside of us and they go, oh, okay, now this person means it. I want to find the middle way with my daughter, so she's not attracting people who will beat her and calling it love, right? So, and that's what will happen. Oh, pain, when I feel that charge, that means something. When he's angry, that means he's powerful. That means something, and I should listen to that and only that. I want her to hear my words and be in a still enough, calm enough body that she can receive my words without having to come in with the energetic charge, right? So I'm working with this person who says she wasn't allowed any emotion in her family. And Haven, so she said, I'm out of control because I'm so angry, is what she said. But then in the exact, and she's 7, but this is how a lot of adults work too. And the next sentence, she said, well, my dad's in control because he is angry. So I had to point out to her, I want you to notice that actually anger is keeping you out of control. So why is it the thing that's keeping daddy in control, right? So she's trying to control the thing that she thinks is keeping her under control in her own weird way, right? So in regards to this person that she hears me say, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to feel your feelings. You have a right to experience that. You actually have to experience it to be an integrated person. And her stance is, well, I will always tell people I'm upset. I never will say I'm angry. And I said, well, you're angry. Like, you were angry at me last week. Like, like you're angry, right? Like, you're allowed to be angry. But what registers for her is that is me out, like, you're asking me to be out of control. And a lot of the people I work with think they're going to do this outlandish perpetrator thing if they allow themselves to feel what they're already feeling and just denying. And they're not going to perpetrate with their emotions, right? Like, oh my God, I'm becoming this hothead. Oh my God, if I get angry, then I'm going to be sloppy and be screaming and yelling. And no, most of the people I work with are intellectually calculated enough to actually maintain composure. But they fear that if they integrate these aspects of self that they have shunned, right? Like the nature of being angry, or the nature of going, hey, this is so important to me, I'm going to interrupt this person because I feel passionate, right? Two people could say, oh, they're just people. It's just an experience that they're having. And somebody else could say, oh my God, she's an angry bitch. Oh my God, whatever, right? So there's a shadow side of the self that to reintegrate, we actually have to know, okay, this thing that's coming up in me is an aspect of self I have been taught to demonize. I've been taught to associate this level of interruption with hot-headedness, this level of emotion with I should retreat, right? If I feel angry, I have to go to my room and not say anything, or associate it with, oh my God, the reason I have to do that is because if other people in my family get angry, they flip out, and that's dangerous, right? So this particular person never got to know what she would do if she was angry. So she fears it like crazy while subconsciously being angry, right? And this is shadow reintegration. This is when you can, for my daughter to say, Daddy's in control because he's angry, and I'm out of control because I'm angry. The integrative piece here is that there's a judgment. Even in my daughter, she's 7, she has an association with that charge and what needs to happen next, right? There's a disciplinarian in her already, and she's 7. And that's what happens in adults when they go, oh, I just did that thing, that hot-headed thing that they label as hot-headed. Or I just did that thing that we're like, oh, I noticed that I feel like crying because I'm so mad right now, and I have to stop myself from doing that. When you reintegrate the shadow, aspects of yourself that you were taught to demonize will expand. And that will be good because you can transmute what comes from that and with that, right? Like, we're not saying be an asshole, but you're not an asshole, most likely, right? You just fear that you might be. You've never got to be yourself. You're probably a very gentle self. But if you've never got to be that self, you fear the self that you were taught not to be. And that is the same exact thing that happens when you reintegrate the shadow and you go, oh, wow. I'm like, all of a sudden, I noticed my mother's programming in me. I thought I didn't have that, right? Or I noticed that I'm becoming a hothead like my mother. Or I noticed that I'm doing this thing like my mother and I don't like that, so I should get rid of this. And I go, no, welcome it right now, right? We're going to welcome that. We're going to transmute the energy associated with that charge. That's the goal. Because we want to live neutral lives. We want to receive life from a place where it doesn't have to hurt us to feel it. It doesn't have to exhilarate us to feel it. We want to be the middle way and feel it all, the contrast, right? Wow, I just saw somebody hit a car. Ouch, that's weird. Anyway, exploring this new you. I should tell Chris to move my car. Exploring this new you in self-work is going to bring up aspects of self that you have been taught to repress and taught were dangerous and taught that if you allowed them would get you into trouble. And that very moment is a welcoming party for your inner system. That most people will go, oh, I can't do this. Nope, this self-work isn't working for me. It's actually making me nutty. Congratulations, right? A part of you is learning the parts of you that you were taught to unlearn. So practice when you go, oh my God, I'm becoming hot, or I'm becoming like my mother, or you have a word associated with it. Just go, notice the feeling and go, oh, that must be important to me. Or, oh, I'm just becoming a person. Instead of this like ideal of perfection, I'm just becoming a person. That is shadow integration. And that is embodiment. And that is wholeness in my experience and my opinion. So If you do get to those places in self-work where you go, yo, my therapist is like kind of actually making me like be this person that like I'm a little bit more willing to, you know, play the game than sit back and fear the game. And that's scary for you because, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. Congratulations, that's a welcoming party for your insides. If you can neutralize the judgment about what it means to be the thing that you're now becoming, that's shadow work, right? 202, I suppose, in that context. Okay, I hope this was helpful. I love you guys. Bye.